Today on the DML News Podcast, Donald Trump in a lot of trouble in terms of coming up with the money or the bond to protect himself against the radicals in New York. Plus, the Supreme Court Justice, who was appointed because she checked a lot of boxes that Biden wanted to check, wants to take away freedom of speech or at least empower the government to manage it. And we have so much on illegal immigration today, I can't even start to mention the stories. It's going to be an incredible show, and it is all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. On the controls is Ryan. He's going to have one hell of a day today. We've got lots of videos that will blow your mind. Across from me is my son, Denny, and I am, of course, here with you as I have been for more than a decade. We are going to start off today with a story that happened yesterday that we didn't get to cover because it happened after our program, and that's with Donald J. Trump. Before we get to that, Denny, I just want you to get the stats right here about home prices. Before we get to that, yesterday I gave a 6-7 minute explanation as to why it is that we're having one of our last BOGOs at DMLCBD.com. If you need to know why, go back and look at yesterday's show or go to DMLCBD.com/BOGO. And at the top of that is my video that explains why it's one of our last BOGOs. Just know that right now, at DMLCBD.com/BOGO. Until March 31, we are having a site-wide buy one, get one free. This will be one of the last ones we ever do as a company. We're not going out of business, but truth be told, we cannot do the BOGOs anymore because of Joe Biden. It is impossible for us to survive with all that he's done with inflation and interest rates. And I'll give you an example of how bad it is in America right now. Denny is going to give you a statistic that will blow your mind when you compare 2020 to 2024. Go ahead, Dennis.
It's a tweet from Benny Johnson with a very troubling graph here. In 2020, which is 4 years ago, Americans needed an average income of $60,000 to afford a home. Today, you need $106,000. That's $30,000 above the current average household income. Bidenomics has destroyed the American dream in just 4 years.
So another thing that it's done is it's caused people, especially people who are 50 and over, who are either at the last parts of their saving for retirement or actually in retirement, it makes it impossible for our demographics to be able to get the things that you really need. Because you take a look at my two sons, they're always talking about how expensive it is to live, how expensive it is to go to the food market. Right? Just to get simple things like eggs and chicken, and then God forbid you want to put gasoline in your car. So think about how that translates into things like CBD or supplements that can really help somebody with their health and wellness. I'm seeing all too often customers that have been with me for years, because we've been doing this for 5 years now, customers who are coming back and saying, I gotta cut back, or I can't buy it at all, because if I look at CBD for my ability to sleep, or CBD for the ability for me to crush the anxiety or get rid of the aches and pains, I can't do it, DML, because ultimately I need to eat. I mean, I get these emails and they break my heart. So that's why we do these BOGOs, so we can slash the prices in half for you. And like I said, maybe if Trump gets reelected and he gets back into office, maybe a year from now we could re-pick it up. But please go to DMLCBD.com/BOGO. You could get more information on why it is that we're doing this and how it works. But for the most part, anything that you buy, if you haven't started a CBD program, this is the time to do it. If you are an existing customer, my Lord, please go in and get it now. Do not wait for the 31st. We already, and one of our top things is the soft gels. Just yesterday alone, our first day, we sold out 50% of our new stock that just came in on Friday. So if you wait, if you hesitate, you're going to miss. So please go in there now, DMLCBD.com. You know, Denny, when you talk about trouble with money, one of the most richest men in America, Donald J. Trump, has now been attacked so viciously from the left. And when you think about what he's been viciously attacked for, where he's had to come up with these crazy bonds, he got nailed for the stuff with Miss Carol. I'm not going to say the words because it will trigger off the AI, algorithms over there at Facebook and Apple. But for a crime, an alleged crime that she can't even recall when exactly it happened. She said she was wearing clothing that weren't even manufactured at the time. And he gets bagged for $83 million. $83 million. So this woman could go on MSNBC the next day and say they're going to go fishing and on a shopping spree with Rachel Madcow. And so, long story short, he has to post a bond because in order to be able to appeal in New York, you have to at least have that money secured. Now comes in Letitia James, right? She gets that Endragon, the crazy nut Einstein lookalike, Bernie Sanders wannabe judge, to bang Trump for $450 million. Plus, it's going up because of the interest that's on it. He went to 30 different bondsmen and couldn't get anybody to support him for the full price. I don't blame the bondsman for doing that, because if Trump doesn't pay, if Trump skips out, they go to the bonds company. And that bond company, they probably won't even have that kind of money to do it. So there's nobody to protect him. The courts knew this when they handed him down this crazy sentence for doing what? It's not like he stole money. It's not like he did transactions with a foreign agent and didn't register or something. It's not like he destroyed New York somehow, some way. No, all he did was put a value on his buildings that insurance companies and banks confirmed, did their due diligence, said, yeah, okay, we agree with this. Let's do business. They testified on his behalf, and still he's going to get hit for a crime where there is no victim. Now, this money that they want to collect, obviously Trump wants to go and say, I'm going to appeal that. Well, in order to get to the appeals court, Trump has to put up the bond. Well, he can't put up the bond, and he doesn't have enough cash to put that in. It will wipe him out. It will bankrupt him. His lawyers yesterday filed a brief with the courts saying, hey, it's 1 week until this bond is due. We can't get anybody to bond him, and we don't have the cash. So now Trump is in a situation where one of two different things is going to start to happen. Either A, the appeals court is going to have to come down and side with him, or number two is he's going to have to either start liquidating, or what I said would be the best thing for him, whether he recognizes it or not, is that they start to seize his assets. If they start to seize his assets, America will be able to see for the first real time the communism that has entered the United States of America. Having your property seized in the sort of manner that they will be doing for him in a kangaroo court is actually communist rule. What's your take on this?
Oh, I don't want to be cynical, but I really hope people can actually see that it is a blatant act of communism. I mean, he can't get anyone to write him these bonds to post the $464 million. You're right. It would be a stark visual of, okay, this is beyond the government overreach. And I know we got even a story about one particular Supreme Court justice when it comes to government overreach. But I don't know. I'm starting to get worried that there's just too many Americans asleep at the wheel to not see some of the injustice that's like literally being enacted on what is our nominee for the Republican Party. So and I've been reading reports too. I had it in my morning briefing that, we don't really know how much awareness Biden has at this point, but that he's frustrated about all these public polls that just continue to show that he's losing. Well, we know what the Democrats are capable of, and there's no way at this point, I mean, what is it, March? There's no way at this point he would naturally beat Donald Trump in the election. There's just nothing. There's no way. And that just kind of leaves one route, which is how do we just get him out of the race? And maybe debanking him to the point of bankruptcy is their method here.
If you really look at it, there's no difference between the way that Russia operates and the United States operates at this point. We just do it more cleverly in the sense that Putin is always accused of poisoning his naysayers or the people who want to run against him. He rids of them. They suddenly die somehow. They disappear. They're in prison. They're held in prison. We don't go that far because the optics on that would just be like, okay, we're officially finished. Now what we do is we use the courts and we sell the idea that a crime has been committed and that a justice has to be served. But in this particular one, there is, it's not even, you look at the Carol thing, and you say to yourself, oh my God, really? You're going to believe her over him? Well, at least in that case, although I disagree with it wholeheartedly, and I think it was a complete scam, at least in that case, you have a he said, she said. In this particular case, with the buildings and the fraud committed, there's no victim. Nobody's complaining that Donald J. Trump defrauded me. Donald J. Trump didn't pay me. Donald J. Trump ruined my life. There's nobody there.
I know.
And so they're just creating it out of thin air.
Everyone keeps saying, where does that money even go? You know, because like who got wronged here? You know, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, O'Leary says it perfectly. New York is a loser state. And the fact that this ever became something, it's the most blatant, obvious look to the corruption that the legal system has kind of evolved into.
You're referring to Kevin O'Leary, the guy from the Shark Tank.
Yes, from Shark Tank.
So, Donald J. Trump is also making headlines today. It's like they couldn't even keep the headlines on him for one day on the bonds thing. And I'll tell you why it is that they overshadow that immediately. That only lasted. I mean, if you go and you look on any of these top mainstream media places, even Fox News, that story should still be covering today in the top 3, top 4. You won't even find it. The reason why you won't find it is they have a new anti-Trump story. And this one is much greater because the other one makes people sympathize and feel bad for Trump. One of the things I see going on Facebook right now is, hey, let's raise money for Trump. People are actually talking about, let's get together $450 million for that. Well, they don't want that to start happening, the Democrats. They don't want that to happen, the media, because it will happen. People are donating to him constantly. They'll do it again just to try to fight back on the left and keep him afloat. So they kill that story because they don't want it to grab any momentum, right? So what do they replace it with? That Trump came out in an interview last week and said that that the Jews, if you are a Jew, Trump said that the majority of American Jews should feel ashamed. They should feel ashamed because they don't vote for Republicans. And he said that if you do vote, if you're a Jew and you vote for Democrat, you must really not love your religion. And so that's what they're going after him for.
Whether it's bloodbath, whether it's a few bad people, or whatever the other comment they took out of context, if anything, it just shows that the favoritism and the love that people have for Trump will always outweigh the lies that a lot of these people are going to spin and try to push onto him, such as MSNBC, CNN. It doesn't shock me that they're at this point, right? Anytime you see something where they are going off the rails of, oh my gosh, how could he say such a thing? You just have to know deep down, like, that's not what actually happened. It's just him, I mean, look how much he called, right? They're sending their worst over here, drug dealers, rapists, murderers. I mean, look at today, right? What do we have? Fentanyl over the border. I don't know, about 5 stories that we're probably going to get to regarding burglary, murder, and rape. And then also, a flooding of our legal and monetary systems to the point where we can't afford to live, such as that crazy stat. I mean, how depressing is that to read, that you have to make well over $100K just to afford a home in America, the place where that's supposed to be reasonable and doable? We're no better than a lot of the countries that we, for years we've been crapping on.
Right. And what you're referring to there is obviously what Trump said when he came down the escalator about Latinos that are coming in illegally from Mexico. And then all of a sudden it was, oh, he hates Latinos. He's a racist. He's everything like that. And look, everything he called is right. And he said, and some are good people. They spin it all the time. But going back to this thing here about what he said with the Jews, I want to read this one post from somebody who is a Democrat on Twitter. Her name is Jen. She says, Jewish Democrats are schooling Trump after he voiced contempt for U.S. Jews. Trump said that the majority of American Jews should feel ashamed because they don't vote for Republicans. Jewish Democrat Council of America CEO Mr. Soifer said that Trump's comments were a good reminder of why more than 2/3 of Jews in the 2020 election backed Biden. Here's the quote. He's conveying this message of contempt, anger towards Jewish Americans because he knows that 3/4 of us will never support him. So our message to Trump, as he continues to demonstrate animus towards Jewish Americans, the feeling is mutual. It's only going to continue to grow as we head into November. And the part of this is just baffling to me, is that when you look at the Democrats and who it is that they have really been aligning with during this whole Hamas-Israeli conflict, they toe the line. They say, oh, well, we support Israel, but then they sit there and they allow these protests, these pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist protests to just actively take shape in the street. Then you got Charles Schumer, calling for I can never say that, Benjamin Netanyahu to be removed from office, when Bibi is basically the most diligent person there is when it's in trying to defend Israel. So these guys are playing both sides of their mouth on the Democrat side. They never do anything to protect the Jews or to protect Israel. Trump comes in there, says to Israel, we're going to wind up being your best friend. You're back to being one of our best allies. We're going to move our embassy to Jerusalem. We're going to recognize it. I mean, his own son-in-law is Jewish. His grandchildren are being raised as Jewish. And these people, these idiots, this is why I say all the time that the Democrat brain needs to be autopsied at death, because something misfires. They take the facts, they take the truth, and they just can't see it. No better than, and he's supposed to be a Republican, than Joe Scarborough. I'm not even going to bother you with this, but I mean, he went bat crazy because Trump used the word bloodbath to describe what's going to happen in the auto industry and what's going to happen with China and their cars and their imports and all of this different stuff. When he was on a stage, used the word bloodbath. Joe Scarborough goes crazy as if this guy is calling for everybody to pick up an AR-15 and an M16 and go take it out on your local government official, which is absolutely nuts. And then when you look at how many times Joe Scarborough has used the word bloodbath in his show to describe similar situations that Trump was, it's uncountable. This is what I'm talking about. It is absolutely bizarre how it is that they try to shape Trump as this big, bad, evil hater. And his greatest crime, Dennis, and then I want to move on to the SCOTUS part. His greatest crime is that he wanted to make America great again. We want to make America rich again. We want to make America safe again. We want to make America smart again. The Democrats don't want that. They are doing everything they can to drown this country in stupidity and third world and debt.
I think I'll add even a little more to that. We want to make America free again, because our freedoms are continuously infringed upon. And even the ones that we have, they just continue to skitter. I mean, I just saw a crazy report that Scotland is outlawing certain jokes that you can make. Otherwise, it's punishable by jail time, and I like to say, or a lot of people like to say, what you kind of see in Europe starts to kind of trickle over here too. But to your point, I think a very big representation of that is what Ketanji Brown Jackson said during that court case yesterday, which was about government oversight and censorship in the digital space, in internet, especially when it came to elections.
Let's give a little detail on that first.
Yeah.
So there is a lawsuit going on right now. I believe it's in Louisiana, and so the Supreme Court heard opening arguments yesterday, and basically it is a case that the government should not be able to dictate what social media, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. They shouldn't be getting involved in what is and what is not published, what is and what is not considered to be misinformation. Now, this dates back to Hunter Biden's laptop. If you recall, Hunter Biden's laptop story was posted by the New York Post before the election. Twitter took it down, marked it as fake news or that they couldn't confirm it was true, because allegedly the FBI, and this is all from the Twitter files, the FBI and the White House and everybody else was pushing, not the White House, that was Trump, but I should say old members of the White House, people tied to Obama, okay, were pushing for this to be taken down. And so Twitter took it down. And then all the other social media platforms followed. And meanwhile, it turned out to be a completely true story. But the truth was hidden from the public because the government got involved in what can and cannot be published on social media. That is the crux of what's happening right now. And with that being said, what took place was that Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who, by the way, is the same woman who couldn't define what it is a woman, the definition of a woman when asked during the approval process.
I'm not a biologist.
Right. I'm not a biologist. I'm not smart enough to tell you what a woman is. So meanwhile, what she did yesterday was she was asked, the conversation was going on about how it is the government can't get in. And she said aloud in a courtroom where everybody can hear it, basically, you will hamstring the federal government. Your First Amendment that you're talking about is going to hamstring the federal government in significant ways at the most critical of times. What? We want to play for you what Jim Jordan had to say about this. Ryan, play Jim Jordan.
Well, that's what happened. You did have the FBI doing that, but the big takeaway today was Ketanji Brown Jackson when she said to the Solicitor General from Louisiana, she said, "You've got the First Amendment hamstringing the government." Well, that's what it's supposed to do, for goodness sake. It was literally one of the craziest things I've ever seen, that you could have a justice on the United States Supreme Court say that in the oral argument. I mean, it made no sense to me. That is frightening, because if she really believes that is scary where we're headed. Understand what took place here. This was censorship by surrogate. This was big government telling big tech to take down speech they disagreed with. And it was the most fundamental kind of speech. It was political speech, the kind that's supposed to have the most heightened scrutiny you can have before you can take that down. But that's what took place. And then to have a justice on the Supreme Court say what she said, that is frightening.
So basically, Denny, it's coming down to, let's not forget that Joe Biden appointed or suggested to appoint her and put her up as the nominee for the SCOTUS spot because she checked two boxes. She was female and African-American, not because she was smart and proven and justified, but because of her demographic. So here is a woman who I think is blatantly, without any reservations whatsoever, showing what the blueprint is for the radical left.
And when did she get inducted? She got inducted only 6 months ago, 7 months ago. I mean, she's a fairly she's a newbie justice, and I think, right, like you always say it, what it's supposed to make America unique is certain attributes to us. I think our Second Amendment makes us unique when you compare us to other countries. Our Constitution overall just makes us unique, and I think our Supreme Court makes us unique. And yeah, we have obvious justices that have certain biases, but they're supposed to be almost like the last line of defense to make sure that the rest of the federal government does not, go bananas and become a state of banana republic or socialist for that matter. And you hear a comment like that, and I think everyone's red flag alert should be, sounding the alarm. I mean, she is literally attacking something such as the First Amendment, something that makes us special, that is supposed to keep everything in check, is supposed to keep our freedoms, is supposed to keep us accountable. And now you got to, I even wrote in my morning briefing, I am very thankful there is not 8 more of her on that court, because that would be, I don't even want to get into the gloom and doom.
Let me get into that. Let me get into that, because that's the whole thing you got to remember. This is, if you ask me what is the greatest thing of the Trump presidency, I'm going to tell you, short term, the tax cuts. Long term, the fact that we took over the Supreme Court. It's the only saving grace. And with that said, there are some times when this Supreme Court, which is heavily conservative, disappoints.
Like the Texas
Texas story that we're going to get to at the latter part of the show. But, think of this for a second. If the Democrats continue to rule, if they continue to play games with the election, with the help of Google, which Dennis is going to pop up right now and tell you a new story here, which blow your mind, eventually, Kavanaugh and all the other so-called conservatives on the Supreme Court, Justice Thomas, they're either going to retire or die out. And we will wind up having a Democrat-ruled Supreme Court. If we do, and it's filled with more people who simply check boxes versus having a long history of bench work, you will see that your First Amendment is taken away, like Dennis just said in Scotland, that if you make an off-color joke or something that is apparently offensive, you will not only lose your social media, but you will lose your freedom in the sense that you will be in jail. That's where we're going if we don't cap this now. Now, with that being said, this is a Herculean effort, because You may argue that the most powerful person in the world is the president of the United States, or at least in the top three anyway. But how powerful is the president versus how powerful are major corporations like Google, who basically rule the proliferation of information? Dennis, what is the new study that just came out on Google and how it is that they treat elections unfairly for people like you and me versus people like Conjina Brown and Joe Biden?
Well, that's the thing. This should not be surprising, but it's just concrete confirmation here. So this is from the New York Post. Google has been putting its thumb on the scale to help Democratic candidates win the presidency in the last 4 election cycles, during which it censored Republicans, according to the Media Research Center. The MRC published a report alleging 41 instances of election interference by the search engine since 2008. The MRC published a report accusing Google of having, quote, utilized its power to help push to electoral victory the most liberal candidates while targeting their opponents for censorship.
Hey, we know this firsthand.
And just so you know, the skewing of that manipulation only got higher over time. They said that it reached its peak in 2023 in terms of their manipulation tactics.
Google, it's not just on the elections. It's on the messaging. I'll give you an example. How many people watching this show have signed up for email alerts from us when our show's out, when breaking news is out, whenever it is, and they'll say, I don't hear from you anymore, and I signed up. That's because Google, especially if you have a Gmail, is tossing it to the spam, tossing it to promotions, and you don't see us anymore. When I look at my email, because I'm signed up for other outlets. I'm signed up for Breitbart, I'm signed up for Fox News, and I'm signed up for I'm signed up for another one I can't remember. And I'm signed up for my own. I never receive them in my inbox. I got to go find them in the junk or the spam. But every single day of my life, without question, even though I don't click on it, I get Reuters, AP, New York Times, Washington Post. I signed up for those as a test to see whether or not I get them. So here are the 4 that I really want that I'm going to open. And here are the 4 that I don't want to open, and I get them. Axios is the 5th Democrat. Every single day I get those in my inbox. So even on a personal level, they are deciding, hey, this one's conservative, throw it to the garbage.
Totally. I mean, you ready? Just back up for that statistic alone. A study found that the Google manipulation cost Republican candidates over $2 billion in donations since 2019 by flagging 77% of their fundraising emails as spam. During that same time period, Gmail marked less than 11% of Democrat fundraising emails as spam. So yeah, the selective bias is all over there.
So if you go back into the election part of this, and I mean, well, Dennis is going to give you the next story about Nevada and the voter rolls, what's going on over there. When you look at the election stuff, and that's where we're actually headed to, right? You will find that you will see far more in your feeds about anti-Trump, pro-Biden, and anti-Republican, pro-Democrat in almost every single thing. Facebook has already announced, this was going back a month or 2 ago, that people like this show, I should have this watched 100,000 times easy on Facebook. I'm lucky if I get to 10,000, and that's if we keep on pushing it. The reason being is they said they're going to take all things political and it is basically going to be squashed, crushed. It's not getting any spread. It's basically going to get no reach. And you want to know why that is? Because Donald J. Trump basically won the 2016 election because social media played the role that mainstream media would not. And therefore, now social media is killing the message. So you know how many people aren't going to figure out, well, why can't I afford a house? Well, they're not seeing what it is. They're not seeing the statistics. They're not seeing what it is that Biden is doing to the country other than what they see right in their own backyard. They're not seeing it on a wide level because they're not getting the information, because these social media companies are basically, as you like to say, running cover for Biden and the Democrats. With that being said, talking about election, what's going on in Nevada right now with these voter rolls?
Yep. So a local news report here. Republicans have sued Nevada's Secretary of State Francisco Aguilar and 5 county clerks, including the Clark County's Lorena Portillo, alleging, quote, impossibly high voter registration numbers because lists have not been properly maintained. The lawsuit by the RNC, the Nevada Republican Party, and Scott Johnston, who is a precinct captain and a registered Republican voter, was filed Friday in U.S. District Court. It alleges the plaintiffs have failed to live up to requirements of the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. And this is a quote from the lawsuit. At least 3 Nevada counties have more registered voters than they have adult citizens who are over the age of 18. That number is impossibly high.
So every time that you hear the mainstream media tell you that Trump is spewing the big lie about 2020, whenever you see that there is some sort of misinformation marked down on a post or something else of that nature, just keep in mind that if I had to take all of my savings and put it on one or the other, the election was straight up or the election was filled with shenanigans, I'm going with shenanigans if God is allowed to come down and give us the truth, because I won't believe the truth from anybody else except for God and what I see with my own 2 eyes. Now, with that being said, right, people are now catching on that the big C-19 that you were sold is a bunch of garbage. If you have gotten yourself the shot in the arm and then went and got your 4 boosters, I defy you to go try to get yourself a life insurance policy right now if you don't have one. See what they say. I guarantee you, odds are very high, you will be turned down. Well, boy, I wonder why that is, right? So with that being said, I believe it may be longer than we like in terms of a time frame. I believe in the same way that we're now seeing things like 148 pages of a CDC report about the whole, you know what happened with the shot, every page redacted because they don't want the truth to be told. You will one day see that what took place in this country in 2020 is revealed for what it is. Now, moving past that and going into where we are now, maybe the Democrats realize they can't replicate what they did the last time because now at this point it's too obvious, right? Think about this. If you keep on getting robbed in your front door, what are you going to do? You're going to barricade it. You're going to watch it. You're going to put cameras on it. Well, guess where nobody's going to come in again? Your front door. But you didn't do the same for your back door. So now they're going to try to get you the next time till that. With that said, the Democrats are trying new games. One of them is with the illegal alien influx, because the illegal alien influx, although they're not supposed to vote, they do add on to the census, and the census makes it to where it is. It helps with the delegate count, and it also helps with districting, where funding goes to, and where representatives are actually assigned, meaning how many representatives you get for a state in Congress. We're going to play a video that just took place. Don Lemon, the failed, disgraced member of the CNN Society, he now interviews the smartest man in the world when it comes to business and ingenuity, Elon Musk, about immigration and voter rolls and stuff of that nature, and things like districting. Listen to this conversation between the two.
If legal immigrants, which I think have a very strong bias to, at least everything I've read, it's a very strong bias to vote Democrat. The more that come into the country, the more they're likely to vote in that direction. But it is, in my view, a simple incentive to increase voters, to Democrat voters. And yeah, so the question is like how? So there's a few ways that this works. One is that when the census is done, the census is based on all people in an area, whether they are citizens or not. So if there are a concentration of people who came here illegally in a particular state or in a particular state, that state will actually then get an increased number of House seats. So the House seat apportionment is proportionate to the number of people, not the number of citizens. So the illegals overwhelmingly go to places like California and New York, and if you just look at the math, if you look at the apportionment with and without illegals, I believe California would lose. I believe the blue state, there would be a net loss of blue states of approximately 20 seats in the House. This also applies to the Electoral College. So you say, like, well, this also applies to electing the president, because the electoral votes are also done by apportionment the same way that House seats are done.
But the reason, Elon, the Electoral College is in place is to balance that, is so that doesn't happen. So what you're saying about it is the exact opposite of the reason why the Electoral College is there. The Electoral College at this point, in our history, gives people who are in smaller states and red states much more of an influence over our elections than people who are in blue states, and the majority of the people in this country. That's what the Electoral College does. It actually does the exact opposite of what you're saying. It protects people who are in smaller states and protects people who are in red states.
Well,
the red states, because they tend to be smaller and less populous.
I think that statement is what you said is true, but what I said is also true, which is that if, as is the case, a disproportionate number of legal immigrants go to blue states, they amplify the effect of a blue state vote. And the math, as I understand it, you can research this obviously very easily on it. It's pretty straightforward to research this. But my understanding is that there would be that the Democrats would lose approximately 20 seats in the House if illegals were not counted in the census, and that's also 20 less electoral votes for president. So the illegals absolutely do affect the who controls the House and who controls the presidency.
Don Lemon, I think, just has to be the most mindless person in mainstream media at this point. There'd be more I could probably label onto him, but we're not in that part of the show yet, and I don't have to tell our audience; they already know. I mean, you're gonna find this funny. Obviously, with Musk buying Twitter, he's wanted to develop it to a platform where there can be free speech and people can develop their shows. That's basically what happened with Tucker Carlson. Mm-hmm. So when he approached Don Lemon, he was trying to go the whole fair route and even gave him that interview, which obviously that's just a snippet, but an entire interview, I've seen it. Besides the fact that Don Lemon's trying to the approach of the hard-hitting questions, it's not really. He's just going for a certain narrative to make Musk look like he's an idiot, and yet conversely, it made Lemon look like an idiot. But here are the lists of demands that Don Lemon wanted when Musk approached him about, would you want your show on the platform as an official hosting? He wanted a free Tesla Cybertruck, a $5 million upfront payment, and then an $8 million salary, an equity stake in Twitter, which is now X, the right to approve any changes in Twitter policy as it relates to news content, a private jet flight to Las Vegas, a luxury hotel suite for him and his fiancée in Las Vegas, and then Twitter to pay for their day drinking and massages that they would be booking at this hotel.
Where'd you get that from?
It's all over Twitter. It's an official listing. I mean, whatever. I'm not shocked.
I don't know. I wouldn't put my hat on that being the exact thing. I mean, there's so many things that sometimes are up there. You don't know if it's just satire or not. But let's assume for the moment it's true. He's out of his mind. He has always overvalued what he's worth. If it's not true, it's still so close to believable because that's the way they operate that it would make you give a chuckle. But more importantly is, Elon Musk and X, from what I had read right after that interview, parted ways with Don Lemon. So there is no more partnership between the two of them.
Which, to clarify that, they parted ways, but Musk said, you're more than welcome to post on the platform and you get any ad money through that. But, he's not going to be officially hosted. And I don't blame him. He said, like, he's part of the CNN lineup of, trying to distort what his actual statements are. So I don't think anyone's going to miss the Don Lemon show.
No. So anyway, with Musk, the most important thing here is that Musk is like Trump in many different ways. Trump is so important that we get him reelected, because it's the only way to at least start to right the ship. Without Elon Musk and Twitter, there would be virtually no major platform for real information to find its way to the public. And that's why Elon Musk is quickly becoming, enemy number one to the Democrats. If they actually are successful in keeping Trump from being reelected, the Trump era is done, because there's nothing left for him to run for. And you watch, Dennis, all energy will be turned to taking down Elon Musk. Elon Musk is next in the firing line. Now, with that being said, going back to this very important thing about loading up the country and loading up districts for the sake of elections and for the sake of census and who gets representation, Joe Biden right now sees that he's losing ground in a huge way to Donald J. Trump in the Black and Latino vote. That is starting to shift over. Now, Biden did really well with the Latino vote in 2020, mainly because Trump was becoming tough on immigration. That being said, Biden is now doing a little tour, is he not, to go try to appease the Latino voters who are moving from him?
Yeah, so his pandering tour is starting today. Biden will use a stop at a Mexican restaurant in Phoenix to announce a national program to reach Latino voters. It's called Latinos con Biden-Harris, as his campaign rushes to reverse gains that former President Trump appears to be making with Hispanic voters. 4 years ago, Biden won Latino voters 2-1 over former President Trump, according to exit polls. But recent polls indicate that Democrats' longtime advantage with Latinos, the fastest growing segment of the U.S. population, is diminishing.
Well, you can't expect any American, regardless of their nationality, background, or religion, to be happy with Joe Biden when you go back to the statistic that we started the show off with, how that one needs to earn enough money to own a home. Owning a home in America has always been the sort of poster child, if you will, for what the American dream is. And the American dream is fading very, very quickly. Now, with that being said, we are now going to enter a part of the show. We're still going to, for those listening on Apple Podcasts, those watching on YouTube and on Facebook and even on Rumble, what we do is we give you about 3/4 of our show, sometimes half of our show, and the back end of it winds up going on TeamDML only. The way you get to TeamDML is you can go to teamdml.com. If you are on a desktop or a tablet or a laptop or some kind, you could go there, you could sign up, you could become a member. If you have a smartphone and you want to download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, not only will you get the best news app there is in the world, but you will also have access to TeamDML that way if you want to too. We have memberships on there, various different memberships on there. You could read all about it, but we need to do that for two reasons. Number one is it's the only way that we could stay in business, because Google does demonetize us. YouTube has already demonetized us. They all limit our reach time and time again. So it's the only way we can stay in business. That's number one. Number two is there are so many things that we're going to talk about right now. We have a video of a white girl being attacked again in the most vicious of ways. We can't show that on social media. We have different stories right now that's happening through the border, stuff that's new on top of what we told you yesterday, which is so, it's so necessary that we tell you all the details, but those details won't pass the algorithm on these different social media pages. So that's why we have to do that. But we will give you a little taste of it. We're going to start off with a video that is circulating. It's gone viral on Twitter. Thank God for Twitter. And it sort of explains, in this person's estimation, as to why it is that you see the open borders like you do. Give this a 2-minute listen. It is very eye-opening, and then we'll come back to you.
The Democrat open borders plan to entrench single-party rule, explained in under 2 minutes. 1. Flood the country with untold millions of illegals by land, sea, and air from all over the world, enough to eclipse the populations of 36 individual U.S. states so far. 2. Prioritize the needs of these millions of non-citizens over the needs of the American citizen, with free flights, buses, hotels, meals, and phones, ensuring their loyalty to the political party that imported them. 3. Keep them in the country at all costs. Even when they commit violent crime like murder and rape, attack the language used to describe the criminals, as opposed to the criminals themselves. Slander critics as racist. 4. Ensure their privileges are made irrevocable with city and state sanctuary laws that act as population magnets. Codify permanent status and ensure non-cooperation with ICE. 5. Count the non-citizens in the census that will determine congressional apportionment in the House of Representatives. As of now, that would equal 13 extra congressional districts, a tremendous amount of electoral power. 6. Wage a massive, heavily funded lawfare campaign to change state voting laws that legalize mass mail-in ballots, no signature verification, and no proof of citizenship requirements, making it nearly impossible to prove voter fraud. 7. Lock in the permanent voting majority with campaign promises of lavish benefits and permanent privileges, enshrining generational fealty to the Democrat Party. 8. Win elections. 9. Entrenched single-party rule has been achieved. The best part? Your tax dollars are paying for it.
Yeah. So now with that, we want to show you one other video very quickly. With all that's happening in Haiti right now, with all these Haitians just leaving Haiti and trying to go wherever they can, Turks and Caicos here to Florida, they're also trying to go to the Dominican Republic. Well, the Dominican Republic is taking matters into their own hands by saying, we're going to protect ourselves. We're not going to be like Turks and Caicos that got overrun by the Haitians. We're not going to be like South Florida, which is going to become Little Haiti. We are going to defend ourselves. Ryan, play the video out of Fox News showing how the Dominican Republic right now is defending themselves.
The crisis has fueled fears of another Haitian migrant exodus in the U.S. and here in the Dominican Republic. The DER has built a 12-foot-tall border wall to protect them from gangs and crime. They call it a smart security fence with drones and cameras, night vision, and watchtowers. Yesterday, we drove in dune buggies along the border with Haiti, with a commander of CESFRONT, the Dominican Republic's Border Patrol. Construction of this new border wall began last year. The president of the Dominican Republic says so far about 100 miles of border wall has been completed. The goal is to eventually have a border wall run along the entire border with Haiti. He says it'll change the Dominican Republic forever.
So, Dennis, the Dominican Republic is building a 12-foot wall to keep Haitians out from it. Meanwhile, here in the United States, we have Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, trying to defend his state from the illegal invasion, and yet the Supreme Court continued yesterday with a stay. What is that all about?
So the SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, has extended the stay that blocks Texas police from arresting illegal immigrants after the Biden administration sued Texas to stop them from arresting people who illegally crossed the border. It's kind of almost just not even heartbreaking, soul breaking, right? Because Ryan and I, we did a episode of Ryan's Cafe not too long ago about guacamole, but it was related to the Alamo because the Alamo was a town within the Texas-Mexico border range, and it's just a story that highlights the perseverance of American warriors and soldiers in terms of fighting for their country. And clearly, Greg Abbott here has seen what the Biden administration is doing with illegal immigration and has been trying to stop it by his own means and in his own ways, at least to a certain capacity. We always say, can they do more? And then you see something like this, our own Supreme Court, like what we just said earlier in the show, totally putting the shackles on a very big state and allowing this invasion to continue. And it's just really quick, because I meant to mention it, and I know we were going through, we had talked about, the Latino voters making that switch over to, voting for Trump over Biden. And yeah, the other demographic I can really see going into this would be Black Americans as well. There's this great video, but we don't have to play it, where a BET, Black Entertainment Television reporter, is interviewing a Black couple and asking about voting. And she says, who did you vote for in 2012? And they both said Obama. Then she asked, 2016. The husband says Trump. The wife says Hillary. 2020, husband says Trump. Wife says Joe Biden. And then she asks, what about this coming election? He says Trump. She says Trump. And you can tell she's caught off guard. And she said, well, why would that be your vote? And she said, with everything that's going on, I want to start a family. I want to raise a family in this country knowing that it's going to be safe and that I can afford things, and I can't. And when you see this, when you see the Texas border, like in this photo I'm looking at here, just inundated with people who are not supposed to actually be here, you start to question, well, am I ever actually going to reach a point of safety? Am I ever going to reach a point of where, despite all the hard work I've been putting into my job, being able to afford to raise and start a family? And when you think about it, everyone we're hoping to, actually change the course here is failing us in a big way. And the Supreme Court here, they dropped the ball on this one.
Well, Greg Abbott, who is the governor of Texas, put out a tweet after that happened. He said, SCOTUS has temporarily halted enforcement of SB4, but Texas is still using its authority to arrest illegal immigrants for criminal trespass and other violations of law. We continue building the wall, using the National Guard to erect razor wire barriers to repel migrants, and buoys remain in the river. And he's talking about the Rio. Now, with that being said, maybe what it is that Greg Abbott, unlike the Supreme Court, unlike Joe Biden, is trying to defend Americans from the heinous, ugly, life-ending, in some cases, crimes that are being carried out by so many of these illegal aliens from all different places of the world that are coming in. We are going to talk about that right now and give you various different stories that have come through in the last 24 hours that will blow your mind, including some video. So let me say, I cannot show this on Facebook. I cannot show this on YouTube, or I cannot play this on Apple. So at this point right now, we are going to play for you a quick little video of showing you, everybody gets to see it, of a woman in New York trying to protect herself against an assault from an illegal alien. All right. So with that being said, we're going to play it. If you're on Facebook or one of those other places I mentioned, I'm telling you right now, that's where the show ends, right after that video. If you want to catch us, you want to become a member, you could do so for as little as $2.50 a month. It's nothing. Ad-free news, you name it. What a great place. Live chat with other people who are thinking just like you. We're involved in it all the time, and it helps us stick around. So we think we got the best show that there is out there. So with that being said, we hope you stick with us. Here is the New York assault video happening right in the middle of the street. Take a look at this.
You got the wrong thing. Wrong thing. Wrong thing. Wrong female. Wrong female. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. My phone good?
Please. The police is coming.
Please.
The police is coming.
Yo,
the police is coming. You can't do that, man.
Please.
No, man. Just hold him. Don't hold him too tight because you might lose him.
Yo, please.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and TeamDML.